Good morning and welcome to Centers for Spiritual Living, Greater Baltimore. My name is Frank Mastoris. I am the practitioner of the day. Today's meditation is going to be a visualization. So just allow yourself to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and release. Take a second deep breath in and release. Take a third deep breath in. And with the release, allow yourself just to be present to that perfect space in life that you love. Whether it be a beach, your home, with someone you love, and allow yourself to visualize a very large TV screen. And on the screen is the story of your life. And as you allow yourself to watch the story of your life, open your heart and your mind, your senses, to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and most importantly, or as importantly, to feel. Allow yourself to go and look at that story. Starting with your early childhood. What happened? How did you feel about it? Was it a joyful time or was it painful? Both. Allow yourself now to look at the story of your life in your teenage years. Were you happy? Were you afraid? Were you uncomfortable? Were you ashamed of something? Just allow yourself to look at the story. Now, as we move to the next state and the next part of our lives into our early 20s, look out on your life. Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you grieving and hurting? Shamed? Just look at it and bring it with you and acknowledge it. And if you're in your 20s, just stay with that as the remainder of us who are a bit older move forward and move into your 30s. Were you happy? Is there some part of you just didn't like? Were you ashamed? Were you loved? And did you love? Now move into the 40s and look at your life in the 40s. Many of you may have had children or not. How do you feel about the different parts of your life? Your work, your family, yourself? Do you have any guilt, any regrets, any shame? Just look at it and acknowledge it. Let's move into our 50s, where life started to really begin to change. For those of us who had children, we started to think about having grandchildren and started thinking about retirement. Maybe your health wasn't quite as good as we would have liked it to have been. Maybe we regretted something we did or we didn't do in our life. Just look at it upon the screen and accept it. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, just accept where you are and stay with that feeling and that experience. Now allow the scenes of your life in your 60s to express across the screen. Are you satisfied with your life? Do you have any regrets? Do you feel loved? Are you tired? For those of us who are in our 60s, just stay where you are, experiencing the screen and all the past things that you have experienced. And for those of us who are in our 70s, let's move forward to the next experience of the screen. What do you see? Do you see love? Do you see friendship? Do you see fear? Do you see pain? Do you see isolation? Just experience it. And that it's okay. And for those of us who are in our 80s and beyond, see that expression going across the screen. Are you happy with the life you had? Do you have any regrets? Do you wish you'd done something different? Said something to someone? Taken that trip that you wanted? Now bring everything that you have experienced to this present moment where you are. Allow yourself just to be vulnerably accepting of it. All the stories of our lives are part of what made us up. as we are God, expressed in this very moment. You know that there is no place where God is not. Even in the midst of pain, shame, guilt, fear, it's all God. God has expressed as you throughout your entire life. God has loved as you your entire life. God has been frustrated as you or hurt or angry as you your entire life. And God has loved as you your entire life. Now, come back from that special place that you live in, that you love, that you wanted to be in, and come back to the very present now, bringing with you everything, because it's all God expressed. Every single thing that has happened in your life is God expressed. And open your eyes in this very moment and look around the room and feel the chair underneath you that supports you. Move your toes, move your fingers, move your legs, move your arms. Feel your breath, breathing in and releasing. Breathing in again and releasing. And being present in this very moment. And so it is.
Good morning, CSL Baltimore. My name is Felicia. I have some songs with you today. The first song I'm going to be doing is called Calling All Souls.
Love holds me gentle like a flower, rising up to the sun to help me find a way. My soul is searching for the answers. My heart is open wide. That's when I hear you say, calling all souls. You better get ready. Here we go. When it starts to rain, why do we hide? When it's just God bringing things to life. The biggest question is why are we here? To never give up, never give in, keep up the good fight for love. That's when I hear you say, calling all souls. You better get ready. Here we go. That's when I hear you say, calling all souls. We gotta keep fighting for love, fighting for love. Keep up the good fight for love. That's when I hear you say, calling all souls. We gotta get ready to fight for the love we know. Calling all souls. You better get ready. Here we go. Here we go now. Calling all souls. We gotta keep fighting for love, fighting for love. Keep up the good fight for love. Gotta keep fighting for love, fighting for love. Keep up the good fight.
Good God morning, you beloved individualized expressions of the divine. Thank you, Frank, for that meditative reflection on the decades of my life. I truly appreciate that. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual in Greater Baltimore. I'm Rob Aaron-Holt, your host, and we are very grateful that you are here. Every Sunday, actually every day at the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore is Invite a Friend Day. Share the love, talk to your friends and family, have them join us. We will be meeting in person very soon, and tell them namaste. The light in me sees and recognizes the light in you. Our opening prayer today will be led by our practitioner, Frank Mastoris. Frank was raised Catholic, and as he grew, he was more determined to find and experience of the divine or God. He felt his overriding desire to find God. Frank began to explore his own spirituality using prayer and meditation, the Bible, and the Rosary as a means of exploring spirituality. He had this experience of feeling overwhelmingly connected to God and love. Though he did not realize it, he felt as if he was love itself. Frank's been involved in religious science since 1992 and a licensed practitioner since 2014. As a traveling health professional, he has visited religious science churches throughout the country. He has felt this call for over 40 years to live and share a life of oneness with and as the divine expression of all life. Frank's spiritual work is to always call others to their deeper awareness of the divine within, throughout, and about their lives. Frank's spiritual work is to call all to the deep awareness of God as themselves. So I give you Frank Mastoris.
Good morning again. There is truly one power, truly one presence, truly one life, one joy, one laughter, one peace, one presence, one essence, one abundance that we call God. It is everywhere present. It is present in the wind and the seas, in the trees, in the very floor we walk on, in the very air we breathe, in our very bodies, in our very mind, and in our very hearts. We are one, inseparable from and with it. Because we are one, we can never be separated from it, regardless of how far we try to run, if we try to ignore it, if we try to think it doesn't exist, if we say it's not there. We can't deny the presence of God in us, as us, because it is our very breath that we breathe. It is our very thoughts. It is all that we are and all that we will ever be and all that can ever be expressed. And because of this, I know that Reverend Kathleen expresses the divine because she can never be separated from it. Every word she speaks is God's word. Every dream she dreams is God's dream. And today, as she speaks to us about vulnerability, I know that this service is done in divine, right, perfect order. And I am grateful for Felicia, who provided us our music today, because I know that that was such a beautiful song that it touched my heart. And she too is God expressed. She is the expression of God in the music and in the voice and in the words and in the melody and in the harmony. It's all God expressed. And I'm grateful for Robin, our host, who is the hostess with the mostest. She who expresses God on all levels. And for that, I am most grateful. I am grateful also for our producer, Sue, who is in the back just smiling and being the beloved expression of God that she is, because that is our perfection. And I am most grateful for each and every one of you knowing the truth that you are part of here. You are here by divine call to be here with us, to be present with us, to be one with us, to move through this service with us in great joy and great laughter and great love and great vulnerability and in great peace. And to the law, knowing it's done in mind, it's done in form. And so it is.
At the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Baltimore, we honor all the world's religions, as indicated by this ceremony that we have on the first Sunday of each month. Baha'i is the path of unity and peace. Buddhism is the path of compassion and cessation of suffering. Christianity is the path of love and forgiveness. Catholicism is the path of deliberate tradition. Hinduism is the path of knowledge, action, and Islam is the path of submission to the will of God. Judaism is the path of living by sacred law. Indigenous spirituality, the path of honoring the earth. Shintoism is the path of ritual veneration of kami and honoring nature. Taoism is the path of ultimate reality through balance. Unitarian Universalist is the path of social justice and sacred activism. Science of mind and spirit is the path of awakenings on spiritual magnificence in accord with love and law. The heart. The heart represents our love for and unity with all life. So, whatever path you're on, it is honored and it is divine. Educational opportunities here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Baltimore. Right now we have the Thursday night study group, which I participate with occasionally, and it is phenomenal. It will deepen your integration and understanding of today's message from Reverend Kathleen and today's service. We also have the discovery class, which is a prerequisite to become a member. It's online. You can certainly be facilitated by another member to help you through it if you chose to do that. But please take advantage of these educational opportunities. Today, after service, we have visioning. You can join us in the Zoom room. It's on the CSL Greater Baltimore website. Just click on the Zoom room or after service community, and you can join us for visioning. And you can vision for whatever you want to see appear in your life. You got to start with a vision. The Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore is seeking volunteers to serve in a variety of ways. You can help with grant writing. If that's not your thing, you can help us with finding the next physical location, which I think may have already been achieved. The hospitality team, hosting and production team, fundraising, coordinating events. The list is only limited by our creativity and our imagination. To see a full list of news and events and ways you can volunteer to serve, go to the website, thecenterforgreaterbaltimore.org/events. In case you didn't know, prayer works. Listen to it. Prayer works. Say it to yourself. Prayer works. Say it out loud. Prayer works. We as a community continue to treat, pray, and move our feet. Act, knowing the truth for everyone around the planet. If you have a prayer request, you can send it to info@cslgreaterbaltimore.org, and one of our extremely talented and dedicated practitioners will facilitate you in being able to pray. And so it is. Amen and Ashe. Felicia Taylor, who we were blessed to have sing at the beginning of service, is a singer-songwriter from Massachusetts. Music and singing have been a passion of hers since she was 4 years old. Bringing joy and happiness through the music is her goal, and she hopes that she can leave a positive impact on the world. I give you Felicia Taylor.
Hello again, CSL Baltimore. I'm going to be sharing another song with you called God is All There Is. Here we go.
Put my hands together and pray to the only one I know. Give thanks for another day and for everyone in my life. I say and so it is, amen, and then I let it go. God is all there is, everywhere you turn. In your heart and soul and all you know, and in every word, God is all there is, the source of who we are. In every flower and tree, you and me, and in every star. And the night before I sleep, I lay my head and I say, thank you, God, I'm so grateful for all I've done today. I give love to my family and friends, you and all. I say and so and it is, amen, and then I let it go. God is all there is, everywhere you turn. In your heart and soul and all you know, and in every word, God is all there is, the source of who we are. In every flower and
Our spiritual practice is a gentle reminder that in this moment, all parts of us are part of God. From our joy and our laughter, our anxiety and our fear, our pain and our suffering, the utter peace that passes all understanding within us. Body, our body temple, it's God. Every thought that I think is God. That today we should accept that that all of this is God. Nothing more and nothing less. It's all God in multiple expressions, multiple forms, multiple experiences. And God is truly living its life through and as us. And so it is.
Thank you, Frank. What more could we want in life than to be an expression of God? And speaking of expressions of God, Reverend Kathleen Sibley, our interim minister, comes to us after more than a decade at the Center for Spiritual Living in Prescott, Arizona. She coaches and supports other Centers for Spiritual Living ministers in their role at the home office in Golden, Colorado. And she serves her corporate and individual clients through her nonprofit organization, Mindful Gap Focus Ministry. It's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Kathleen Sibley.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure and honor to talk today about vulnerability. And this is something that Brene Brown has kind of gotten us all talking about in the last few years. She had an incredible TED talk that went viral about shame and vulnerability and all of that stuff. But today, I want to talk about vulnerability as it is part of being a community, specifically the community of Greater Baltimore. And it happens that today is, this weekend has been Passover. And so for our friends in the Jewish tradition, we say Happy Passover. Sorry, we're a little bit late to the dinner. That would have happened Friday night, I believe. But there is a story attached to that is very, very apropos for everything that this community is going through. So for those of you who don't know the Jewish traditions, there is a story of a man named Moses who was raised in Egypt and then had to run away because in defending a person, he accidentally killed an Egyptian. So he is actually the person who is seen as leading the Israelites, the people who would eventually be called Jews, out of the land of Egypt, where they were actually slaves, or they had been enslaved. Sorry. And Moses is just, very quietly tending his father-in-law's flocks up and suddenly sees a burning bush, which makes him go, I wonder what that is. And because he notices that the bush is not actually burning, there's just flames all in and through it, but it's not actually being eaten by the flames, he goes and checks it out. And a voice comes out of this burning bush and says, "Go and free my people from the land of Egypt." Now, Moses wasn't stupid. He recognized he was talking to a bush and that this was a little strange. So he said, "Who is this?" Maybe he thought he was being pranked. But in the course of the discussion, he comes up with every single reason he can not to go and do this thing that the God of his fathers was asking him to do. How many of us have gotten the call to do something and let it go to voicemail as many times as we could. Here's the thing. You either answer the call or eventually it becomes so uncomfortable that you do it anyway. So Moses, actually, he says that he is slow of thought and speech. Some people think this means he had a speech impediment. Some people think he just wasn't a great public speaker. And so he says, tell you what, let my brother Aaron do the talking. And God said, fine, I'll talk through it to you. You talk to Aaron, let Aaron do the talking. But I'm going to give it to you to do all the signs. So like he would throw his staff down and it would become a snake. And then he'd pick it up again and it was just a staff. There were all sorts of these little miracles going on, if you can call something a little miracle. So, of course, we all know that Moses went down into the land of Egypt and got his people out. And that's where the story really begins. When we are going through a time of transition, when we are stepping out of our own slavery to old ideas or old situations that may no longer serve us, there's a pattern. There's the ending. So Moses shows up and starts talking to Pharaoh. There's the middle part, which we call the liminal space. And then there's a new beginning. So in the story of Greater Baltimore, there was an ending in that Reverend Dr. Raymond found a new aspect to his ministry and in obedience to his call went to follow that. Now there's a liminal space. It's an interim space. And that's why I get to come and play. And eventually there will be a new beginning. Now, I'm not in charge of the new beginning. It's rather ironic that after Moses goes through everything with the Israelites and going through the desert for 40 years, he doesn't get to enter into the promised land, and neither will I. And that's okay. I am not here to enter into your new beginning. I am here to be with everyone in the liminal space. So one of the things we notice is that the shift actually starts, the ending of the time of enslavement starts the minute Moses says yes to the God of his fathers. And so he goes down there and starts talking to the Pharaoh and saying, let my people go. And you know what happens? Pharaoh says, no, our entire economy is based on having these people do free work. As Americans, we know a little bit about that, don't we? So what he does is start making life harder for the poor Israelites. These people were already enslaved people. And now, for instance, if they had to make bricks, the Pharaoh said, don't give them the straw. Don't give them the ingredients for the bricks. Make them come up with the same number of bricks, but stop supplying them with what they need to do it. Now, this might feel a little bit weird. Like, how are they supposed to, they can't do their work without the supplies, right? What you will find when you are in a liminal space is that the sources of good sometimes dry up. And that's because you're supposed to move. There was a book that came out years ago called Who Moved My Cheese? And what it talked about was when your good has ceased to be in the form you understand or the way you understand or in the place you expect it to be, what that means is your good exists elsewhere. It hasn't ceased to be. It just means you have to go looking for it again, and it may lead you to something even better. So in this liminal space that we're in, that the Israelites found themselves in as they were getting ready to leave Egypt, because their time there had come to an end, their time of enslavement had come to an end. It was time for their freedom, which our founder, Ernest Holmes, says is the birthright of every living soul. As that ended, things got uncomfortable enough that they ceased to sit around in the old. And they moved into this time of change. And yes, there were all sorts of things that happened. There were the 12 plagues. There was the crossing of the Red Sea. There was moving into the desert and following a storm cloud by a storm funnel by day and a bright light by night. There was the provision of manna. Basically, food fell from the sky for them, but they couldn't stock up on it. They could only collect enough for each day. They had to be entirely in trust. Trust is a word that goes very closely in there with vulnerable. The dictionary definition of vulnerable is susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. If you and all your friends who have grown up generationally as enslaved people are suddenly put out on your own, you are in danger. Because for the most part, people who have been born and raised in one culture and taught that they must obey are not immediately ready to pivot and be in charge. Now, any community going through the change in ministers is in something of the same emotional space. They are used to looking to one person for their spiritual food, for their spiritual good. Now, it's not just one person. It's not just the minister, but the minister is often the person it's focused on. And so when that person is either removed or goes away for whatever reason, there's that sense of now who will we turn to? Who's going to help us? Who's going to tell us what to do? Luckily, we have these wonderful teaching stories in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And one of them is that as they were out in the desert in between the land of slavery and the land of milk and honey, or their own personal paradise, they had Moses. Now, Moses was the one talking to God. And so they were given rules. They came up with ways to be together. They came up with the 12 tribes of Israel, where they had somebody who was trusted within a community, 12 of them, would each take on a number of people to care for. And then within that group of people to care for, they were kind of like captains in a group. And so what they did was they created this structure that allowed information to flow up to the people in charge and back down. Unfortunately, it makes a pyramid, but back down to all the people who were living in the area. That's exactly what's going on here in Greater Baltimore. I can act as minister and share some information that the things that I have been taught by the divine as I am led through my process of being a minister, that over the past decades, I have learned from Science of Mind. However, it is the people, the community, the congregation of Greater Baltimore that is going to do the walking through the desert, that is going to be the leader of groups, that is going to be doing all of the production on Zoom. I want to say Salesforce, but it's StreamYard. And we do need people to step up and do StreamYard. We need people to produce these things. We need people who are able to push the buttons. It may not sound spiritual, but without it, we do not have a Sunday service. So if you are interested in that, please go to the website and send us an email. Let us know that either you know StreamYard or you're willing to be taught. The people who stepped up as judges of the people and the heads of houses in the desert with the Israelites, they didn't know how to run a group. They didn't know what laws to follow until they were given the laws. So they were all trained in what needed to be done. And then they had to learn it and just be vulnerable, be in that space of, I don't know what I'm doing. And it might feel a little uncomfortable. It's emotionally vulnerable to do something new and do it in front of other people. And that's okay. Because for the Israelites, these were their people. They were the people they trusted. And so they were willing to walk through the discomfort together to get to where they were going. This is the story of Passover, which is the last night of enslavement for the Israelites in Egypt before they left, or before they were given the okay to go. This is the story of Greater Baltimore as we walk through all of these changes, and we are in that liminal space. Now, there's something you should know about liminal space. The Greeks had two gods of time. The god Chronos, where we get our word chronological, is in charge of time that we can cut up into days and hours and minutes. It's logical time. We know what the path is. But there's a second god named Kairos. Kairos time is when anything can happen. It is time outside of time. Liminal space exists within Kairos time. And what we have the opportunity to do is just as big as what the Israelites could do with their time. They could wander around in the desert forever, or they could learn to manage themselves. They could learn how to live in community in a way that worked for them and their understanding of God. They had the opportunity to cease being in mental enslavement, having been moved out of physical enslavement. They also had to let the mental enslavement go. And it took an entire generation, and it wasn't graceful. It wasn't. I mean, there are so many stories of complaints and moaning and whining and fetching that's actually what, that's a big part of the story, is all the whining and moaning and kvetching as they were in the desert. It's okay to say you're uncomfortable right now if you are part of Greater Baltimore. It's okay to whine and moan to a degree about, I don't really feel comfortable learning StreamYard. I don't feel comfortable going to a new place and a possible new time on Sunday. Because in order to get the new place, we are talking about having to move to a Sunday afternoon. Basically, we're going to start doing happy hour, people. Please do come to the meetings after service if you have an opinion about that, if you have feelings, if you have questions or comments about that. This is where you get to ask the questions and begin to own the new time. Or choose not to. It's up to you. It'll still be live streamed and you can watch it later. This liminal space, this Kairos time, is when miracles happen. It is said that in Kairos time, the very gods are pregnant with possibility. Can you imagine? The divine being itself is pregnant and about to birth something new. That something new might be the Israelites landing in the promised land. That something new is what Greater Baltimore is calling forth to be. And what that requires from each of us individually every day, whether we're part of Greater Baltimore or some other group, and you're watching this at 2 a.m. because you had an anxiety attack and you can't sleep, what we are being called to do is begin to own our own mind, to be in charge of what we think and feel and do. And yes, you can. It's a long process. That makes it look really easy, but it's not. What we're being called to do is step out of mental slavery and step into our greatness. Yes, no matter where you are and what you're doing, there is greatness within you. Right now, I don't know who I'm talking to, but no matter how broken you have felt, no matter what story you have been told about you can't do this, or you're too old, or you're too young, you're too fat, you're too short, you're too, I don't know, blonde. I paid a lot of money to be blonde once upon a time. Those days are over. But here's the thing. If you will acknowledge, if you will begin to end the mental slavery and walk through that discomfort, if you will begin to awaken to a new idea of the divine, then you do end up in a newness. You do end up in a promised land. It is promised to each and every one of us that there is a greater way of being in the world. Ernest Holmes, in his textbook, wrote, "When we learn to trust in the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well." Learning how to trust is a vulnerable spot. And many of us were raised with a God that wasn't particularly nice. One of the stories that I always forget about, but in Exodus 4, it talks about how they get to an inn and Moses is asleep and the Lord, Yahweh, is leaning over him about to kill him. And one of the wives, intrudes and does something and stops that from happening. Actually, she circumcises her own son and uses the blood anyway. It's a long story. It's kind of icky, from my perspective. If we will get a new idea of God, if we will let go of that idea of God that says God is angry with us and is going to punish us, or is, petty like Zeus was said to be, or Hera was said to be, if we can let go of those ideas of God that no longer serve, and begin to take in the idea that the divine is actually, our experience of the divine is the divine. It's not all of the divine. God is much, if it's an infinite being, I don't know how to fit that in my little human brain. If it is an infinite oneness, my brain, which is programmed to be dualistic, to have up and down and good and bad and in and out, I know that I can have glimpses of the allness of God. But I have to put my rational brain aside in order to have the full experience of God. And those people who have the full experience of God are those we call mystics. They get to float around in that oneness. They are saints and sages, and some of them have been adored over generations, and some of them are file clerks in the back of a room where nobody ever sees them. They may be you. You may be having a full experience of God and not know what it is. And that's okay. What Holmes also wrote in the Science of Mind magazine in 2000, this was published in 2001, is we resist being what we really are. We need to accept the fuller expression of the mind, capital M, meaning one mind, the infinite mind. We need to accept the fuller expression of the mind that is within us. For in its creative flow through us rests our entire future, the greater person that we are, and the richer life we desire to enjoy. The greater person that we actually are already exists within each and every one of us. A free person existed in every enslaved person in Egypt. They just needed some time for that to come out and be expressed. In that interim time, in that liminal time between the ending of the old life and the beginning of the new life, time between the former minister leaving and the newest expression of Greater Baltimore that could possibly be imagined. We don't know who's going to be part of that. We don't know what it's going to look like or where it's going to be. We don't know what time service will be. We don't know how many classes we'll have. Right now is the uncomfortable not knowing, and it's rich in possibility. Everything exists in potential right now. It hasn't come down into form. It hasn't actualized, as we would say. And in this time, we, like the Israelites, need to align with those on the journey who are with us. People who actually want to come back and meet in person may have the, if the community says yes, we'll have the opportunity starting this month, not this week and not next week, but this month, we will have the opportunity to meet in person. And if that is something that the community wants to align with, then we're going to need some people to step up and help with the various pieces and parts of that. When we work together, it can be a joyous journey. It can be full of dancing. It can be full of manna from heaven coming down and feeding us so that everything works out for our highest good. It's already started, guys. It's already started. And I am so grateful to the people, to the almost a dozen people who showed up for class yesterday to talk about what does this liminal experience look like? What are the old ideas that are enslaving us in our minds to that which has been, that we think has to be, but doesn't have to be? It's an old idea. We get to let go of that and create laws and ideas and ways of being together that allow us to be a community in a whole new way. in a more functional way sometimes, in a loving way, in a powerful way. We consciously choose how to put that into being, into expression, into play, as it were. I think that's a great phrase. So I invite you now to come out of the land of whatever your mental enslavement is, whether it's with Greater Baltimore, with the example of the Israelites, in your own heart and mind. Allow that to happen. And the tool we use to make these things happen is prayer. We speak our truth and we align with that which we trust, which is the biggest idea of God that we can find in any given moment. So let me show you how that's done. And if you want to close your eyes and use your internal eyes in order to see more clearly, then I invite you to do that now. Because this is what I know. There is one power and presence. It is the infinite being, the infinite possibility that takes its form as this life. All the humans hearing my voice, all of the beings hearing my voice, all of the good that can possibly be, all of the truth that we can possibly tell, capital T truth. This is the divine being. This is the infinite good that we already are, that has been living within us all along. And so I stand witness here and now to the absolute certainty that this good exists within us and for us. It exists through us in the world. And so right here and now, I declare a day of freedom. I declare the fruits of being vulnerable to and trusting in this process, trusting in the divine being to lead us to the land of milk and honey. I absolutely claim the milk and honey now. I know that the time of mental enslavement is over. And as we wander through what looks like a desert, what we're really doing is laying the foundation for how to be in heaven on earth. I know and claim that this is the truth of all of us. And as we are vulnerable to the hope that life can be something more than it has ever been, I declare a day of freedom. I declare a day of power. I declare a promise being answered, a promise being made good on. And I bless it and know that this is time for Spirit to take over, do the leading. Give us the manna, give us the example, give us the time and the treasure and the talent that allows us to take this journey together. And so I just let go and I let God. I allow it all to be. And if this resonates with you, I invite you to share in the affirmation with me. And so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Kathleen. You had me at service as a spiritual happy hour. At this time, we are blessed to have Felicia Taylor share her talent and her treasures with us.
CSL Baltimore. I'm going to share another song with you, and it is called God Within. It's a song that I wrote that really means a lot to me. It was something that I ended up writing to make a little bit more fun, but to focus on, what we feel within and knowing that it's always God.
I walked for miles to get out of the shadows, following, listening to a voice that speaks within. And I know it's bigger and better than anything I know. I can feel it in my soul. I like to call it God within. It lifts me up, won't let me down, no matter what is happening all around. I've got the God within, guiding me to be the peace that we all really need in this world. Yeah. began to pray. Yeah. I sat and listened, and that's when it happened, that my life started changing from that day. I like to call it all within. It lifts me up, won't let me down, no matter what is happening all around. I've got the God within, guiding me to be the peace that we all really need in this world. I know there is nothing that I can do through you. Feeling is believing when it comes to you. I like to call it all within. It lifts me up, won't let me down, no matter what is happening all around. I've got the all within, guiding me to be the peace that we all really need in this world. You know it's all within. It lifts me up, won't let me down, no matter what is happening all around. We've got the all within, guiding me to be the peace that we all really need in this world.
Thank you again, Felicia, for sharing your talents with us. At this time, I'd like to share our Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore vision, our promised land. Think about it, a 24-hour spiritual facility that serves as a community hub, offering people a wide array of services so that each person awakens to their spiritual magnificence, a world that works for all. As Reverend Kathleen was talking about, there are many ways to volunteer and to give to our community, and one of which is with your treasures. Those dollars are powerful, and they are spirit. They are not separate from spirit. They are spirit. And so donations and tithes are accepted in many ways. You can give through PayPal. You can give through Giveify. You can text message, or you can send a check into postal mail, whatever serves you most efficiently. And you can designate where you want your money to go. For example, you could say, I want my funds to go to the emergency care fund, or towards the new location, or towards practitioners fund, whatever meets your needs. But you can go to the website at cslgreaterbaltimore.com/give and give of your time, talents, and treasures. And in alignment with that, I asked you to join me in this declaration of financial wealth and abundance. And I mean, declare it. Speak this with me if you choose. I joyfully, consciously, and gratefully participate in the law of circulation. I trust in the spiritual principle that says, as I sow into my beloved community, I demonstrate my awareness of standing not only in the flow, but as the flow itself. As I sow, as I give of myself, my time, my treasure, my talent, I demonstrate my support and engagement in my community's vision, mission, and purpose. I actively give as a demonstration of manifesting, of reaping the harvest of a world that works for all. Again, I invite you to join us for visioning today after service in the Zoom room. It's on the CSL Greater Baltimore website. Just click, I forget exactly what the button is, but it says gathering after church or something like that. But please, if nothing else, just come for fellowship. And I don't mean to minimize that, but join us in fellowship after service. At this time, would either Frank or Reverend Kathleen lead us in a closing prayer?
Thank you so much. I love praying. It's my favorite high, and it's legal. Who knew? So in this moment, I give thanks for all that has been today, for the music and the prayers and the moments of aha that we've all had. I give thanks for everybody who showed up yesterday to begin to do the work of creating the newness, of walking through the liminal space. I give thanks in this moment for everybody who is walking through a liminal space in their lives, having walked away from or walked through an ending, and is now in that wonderful time of potential that is terrifying for some and joy-filled, and also a time of finding new friends and new cohorts and new ways of being in the world, all of it, all at once some days. And I bless and celebrate all that energy that is currently running through Greater Baltimore, not just our spiritual community, but the entire area, and the way it's spilling over and creating good and more good across the planet. And so I step forward into this new week, knowing that the infinite good of God itself is within me and through me and for me and everyone who is within the sound of my voice right now. I celebrate this Kairos time. I celebrate this land of opportunity. And I call it all good and very good. And so it is.